Hi, I'm Colleen Nelson, licensed therapist, trauma expert, and fellow badass woman ready to rise up right alongside you. This podcast, Let the Rest Burn, is for the woman who has ignored, attacked, or even silenced her inner voice because she thought it was broken and needed to be fixed. It's for the woman who is ready to rise up and fully step into her desire, her joy, her full power, and make the impact she was destined to make. For the woman who cannot stand one more second waiting, watching, and witnessing the world crumble, and is ready to rebuild and expand into a better future. For a woman who is so done trying to fix the world, she decided to start with healing herself, and she let the rest burn. Hello, and welcome back to Let the Rest Burn. This is Colleen Nelson, your host for today. Hello, this is Colleen Nelson. Welcome back to Let the Rest Burn. I am here today with Mike Draper. You might know him on Instagram or TikTok as Mortgage Mike. I'm so excited to have you on the program today, Mike. I obviously have been following him online, like I'm sure many of you have. If you haven't, please pop over there because you're hilarious and make, I think, a topic that is quite challenging to talk about, one that helps us listen and learn through a little bit of humor. So I really appreciate you, Mike. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this little conversation and the talking on topics that are usually taboo for some or a little awkward for others. Just dive right in, full speed ahead.
Woo, woo. Okay. So Mike, on my podcast, I like to ask the question, and it comes from a Glennon Doyle quote in Untamed. Have you read that book? First of all,
I have not.
Oh, okay. So put it at the top of your list.
Okay.
As a man who is navigating, the dating world after divorce, Untamed is a must read. It is literally the book that I think broke 1,000 marriages. It's like the reason many women got divorced. But really what I love about it more than anything else, and I'll say this, if Glennon ever listens to this podcast, I will literally die on the inside with happiness and elation. But she writes in this book about truly becoming yourself and not allowing the world to tell you who you should be or who you shouldn't be, and truly like taking off every single bits of those armor. And she speaks specifically to women who kind of martyr themselves in the name of their children and stay in marriages that are not healthy or happy for them. I think men can do this as well. And they can self-sacrifice. They can put themselves in a position where they're not happy because they believe it's something they should do as the provider of the family. So in this book, she has a quote that talks about being nothing but yourself and letting the rest burn. So that's where the name of this podcast came from. I even have a tattoo right here that says let the rest burn. God, I went all in. I went all in on that.
That's the only way to do it.
And so I am curious. I ask the question of every guest. What did you have to burn in order to become the person you are today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love all how it's all set up. So what did I have to let burn to become who I am today, right? So I think for a lot of people, and for myself included, it's not caring what people think, right? It's kind of the mantra you hear, and then realizing people aren't even thinking about you kind of helped me realize like, well, no one's even thinking about me. Maybe they'll act like it for a second or two, but in reality, everyone's thinking about themselves selfishly, not in like a negative way, but in a self-serving survival, like just do what's best for you in your scenario, which is totally fine. But once I kind of realized that, I just don't care what people think, or that however you want to describe that term. I just don't care, right? Like I'm going to do exactly what I think is funny, what I feel like doing that day, saying. I'm mindful of other people's, feelings and things like that. But, I'm not trying to affect someone else's life negatively, but I'm not going to withhold my life and me just to protect someone who I think maybe disagrees with it or something. But I'm not going to, provoke. But as far as like, what did I let go, or what did I burn to let go? I'm thinking of like a specific incident. What are some examples of incidents people have mentioned for this?
Well, don't worry. I'll ask you the question.
Yeah,
we'll find out. So what I'm hearing you say is that to be the person you are today, you really had to drop this idea that you had to adapt or be the person that somebody wanted you to be, or be this version of what the world wanted you to be, because we want to be liked. We want to belong. We want to be loved. And I think that when we believe that our lovability, our likability, our place in the world revolves around how people view us, we tend to almost become like chameleons to a degree. And so the idea that we burn that and we just show up as our authentic selves, and people are going to project their versions of whatever on us because that's how they understand the world. And those who haven't done this work, who haven't really faced some of their stuff, I think do it more. But what ends up happening is you actually surround yourself with and draw people into your world that have that same principle, that are also authentic versions of themselves, that are also people who want to live by their truth. And then you get to have a really cool human experience where instead of fitting in together, to quote Brene Brown, we belong. We truly actually belong as our authentic self. So I mean, you answered my question very well. I think what I would love to hear is, so you're known online as somebody who has gone through a divorce and has a young daughter and is navigating the dating world or just navigating the world of divorce. Right. So I'd love to hear, what did you learn through the process of divorce and being a single dad that maybe you didn't know before you went through that process?
What did I learn through divorce? So when you were talking about the prior question first, that made me think of a few things, which will kind of lead into your next question, where, so feeling that sense of duty of like having to take care of the family. So the wife, the kid, right? And so I was in the military for 6 years. I had just gotten out when Ellie was about 4 months old. Ellie's my only daughter. She's 7 years old now. And so I had gotten out. I took a job that I didn't want to take at the time, but my wife at the time did not have a job lined up. Neither did I. So we were, trying to survive essentially. We were living with her parents. And so I became a police officer right after the military, even though I had done policing in the military. And it was fun. It was a good 6 years. And then I got out and I didn't want to do that. But I was applying to it because I had all the experience and all the things to get it likely. But I graduated with my undergrad in finance. And so I was applying to finance jobs, business, admin, anything like that, anything I could take. And then the first job I got an offer for was for a police officer spot in Hillsboro, Oregon. This is 2015. So it's still kind of like are we fully recovered from the 09, 10, 11, 12, or are we not? Because there was like a re-dip back in 15.
Yes.
So it's like
so many
I don't know how's the economy doing, right? Hindsight, that was 2020. But I took the job, right? Not regretfully, but like kind of like a setback in a sense, right? But I felt the need I needed to take care of my kid. So there was a need there. And then, so that kind of led, in part to the divorce, not the fact that I took the job. That's not what did it. That wasn't one of the straws, but it was that I was the only one, I guess, kind of carrying the weight of the financial burden of marriage / having a kid, moving back, all these things. And that's a whole other topic, which I'm okay with diving into. But what did I learn from divorce? That it just reinstilled the fact that no one's thinking about you. It's just so solidifying. It's very much like you're on your own and good luck, So people will listen sometimes, they'll let you vent, good friends, family, aka your support system that you have or don't have, maybe, but in the end, they're not the ones that are going to help you pay the bills. They're not the ones that are going to help take care of your kid. They're just someone to talk to. Or not, that, maybe they exist or they don't. But so divorce kind of reinstilled that you are your own person, and that if you don't know who you are, that's fine. Figure it out. Or not. No one cares.
I care. Figure it out. I care.
You know what I mean? No one's going to care about yourself other than yourself, right? Maybe your parents, if they love you. I mean, I don't know your scenario, but it's on you. I don't know. So
I'm going to challenge you on some of this.
Yeah, get
it. First of all, I love the candidness. And so, Mike, I think what I'm hearing, I have a lot of questions, but we're gonna start with one.
Oh, let's hear it.
So this independence that comes from not having a partner who can share the emotional, financial, and and physical load. I mean, I'm sure she did her own stuff as I know that happens. You know, I'm not discrediting her at all, but I do think there's something really powerful here that you named and something I really want to say out loud on this podcast, because I have met with so many different clients and so many different people who this is actually a very common complaint. The true nature of partnership, to have that one person that actually does give a shit, Mike, about you, in a very real way, but in every single capacity that is able to kind of pass the baton back and forth, where you feel like, hey, I just did this thing, or I just got back from the military. I need a hot second to catch my breath and reorient and actually probably, get used to society again and get used to the life of having a 4-month-old daughter and being here and being home. And I just need to pass that baton off for a minute. I just need a minute. And oftentimes men and women, I'm talking heteronormative relationships here, not that this doesn't happen in LGBTQ relationships, but I'm going to speak from my own experience. They don't know how to pass that baton. Women don't know how to pass on the invisible backpack of all the schedules and all of the planning stuff. And I mean, the amount of things that are in my brain is insane. And men don't know how to pass the baton of being the provider or having to, sacrifice to make sure everybody is safe and secure. And it's exhausting. And it does lead to a disintegration of the relationship, because we want to have that one person be the person that actually makes us feel not alone, that makes us feel like we have someone to catch us if we fall. And I think burning down the idea that people outside of that relationship are going to be that person, that you do have to care about your own, you have to care about your own growth. You have to care about your own stability. You have to care about all of that. But that's the point of partnership. That is the point of finding somebody and partnering up, is that you don't have to feel that aloneness, this idea that if I stumble, I'm the only one that's going to catch myself. And that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing. And that's what we're all craving now with our second chances.
Right. Yeah. No, those are great points, right? I never had thought about it exactly like that, where it's pass the baton. When you mentioned pass the baton, and that baton in a relationship that we're talking about would be, in this scenario for me, the male passing off, hey, wife, can you make money? I'll take on all the things that you were doing, which is a lot, right? But both people are doing a lot of things that are just different, but are both needed. So
very much.
What are, basically hey, what are, that communication of, hey, what are you doing? Right. If they don't know, and then and vice versa, and literally handing it off. And I went to this conference a couple of weeks ago that I mentioned earlier to you. And there was a couple there that I spoke with for a few hours, and they did this exact, when you were describing it, it reminded me of them immediately, where they both have their own businesses. He runs an HVAC company with a handful of employees, and she does retreats and coaching and business coaching and a lot of that. Both are very entrepreneurial minded. And they both told me that right now we're focusing on her business. And so I'm putting mine on autopilot, do the minimum or do what's needed, but we're not trying to grow it. So we're just taking care of customers and employees, and we're just doing what's needed and required to give more time for him to work with the to handle the kids and the home situation, while she is focusing her extra time on her business. And they do that for little sprints, I want to say they said, 2, 3, 4 month sprints for each other. And they just alternate back and forth, basically that baton you're talking about of when you have extra time, you get to use it on your business, and I'll maintain the home front and just maintain my business. And it's working out great for them. So it's an interesting way to look at it and describe it that I think is very well done. So,
who else does that? I'll just put out there, I would be gladly be in a throuple with, is Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively.
I've heard, I've seen some of their, I love how Ryan, I'll see his conversations with get talk show hosts and whoever in interviews, and I'll see how the questions that are asked of him, of his wife, how he responds. And it is very much so like that. I like that. So.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I do think we need that, so one of the things that I think we're burning, and what I want to talk about today with you, especially given your world and what you talk about all the time, is what relationships, what we were told relationships were supposed to look like, and what our roles in those relationships were going to be. I think you and I in this world, leading people through divorce, leading, you on a different stage than my own, but in a similar way, we're scraping the old stuff and we're saying like, this didn't work. And it's not something that leads to happiness, fulfillment, and a conscious relationship. So what does work? And that burning of the old relationship pattern, old relationship dynamic creates a path for the new. And navigating dating after divorce is a adventure in itself, but this is where you have to learn from your divorce and say, okay, I did all the things. Like I checked all the boxes. I got married when I was supposed to. I'd had all the things, and I showed up the way I thought I was supposed to show up. And yet it disintegrated for whatever reason. So now what? Now, how do we create conscious relationships based on truth? Based on what we actually need versus what we thought we needed or what we were told that we need.
Yeah. That's the point, whatever that saying is, a $22 question. I don't know what it is. That's the question that needs to be answered, right? That's like the
$22, folks. That's all it is.
I don't know. My dad used to say something like that. I don't remember, but like, it's from some TV show, I think back in like, I don't know, 70s. Anywho. That's where I think spending time intentionally, this is for me, spending time intentionally on dating, on knowing yourself, self-awareness, going to therapy, those things. Because when people ask the question, like, how are you still single? Why are you still single? And I know usually that question comes from a place of like, you seems like you're such a great guy. You should be able to find someone. And so I understand and appreciate the sentiment behind it. But for me, I think it's really this in spending intentional time on dating and the topic of dating, aka like learning yourself, knowing that answer to that question. And so I personally have not made dating a priority, and I'm still 100% okay with that, right? So I know my videos online will like show all the dating perils and frustrations and pain points people are having, myself included, right?
Mike gets ghosted at least 12 times a week.
Based on his videos. My videos might not be like, some people think they're like a vlog of my life on like a daily basis, which is inaccurate.
We have very active life.
Yeah, like I can't, like I'm pumping out content is what I'm doing, right? Because I enjoy making the videos. They're fun. It's fun to get some laughs and then there's like, eventually it's turned into like the business side of things too, where it's like, okay, this is the niche I'm talking about. Okay, what else do I know? What else do I know about dating and divorce? And let's dive into it intentionally. But anyways, and what are the jokes? I filter a lot of sounds, songs, and movie clips and quotes through the lens of like, is there a dating joke or divorce joke here? Right. So that's a good portion of the content is filtering any sound or scenario I've dealt with. And like, is there a dating joke here or a single life joke
always.
Or something?
There's always one.
Right. That's where all the content comes from. It's just filtering it through that lens. Right. And some things are from like, this happened to me today. Boom. Okay. Let's talk about it. Like story time, any kind of the stories. It's like the Canada girl.
Oh, people series. Blew up about that one.
That was legitimate. That was real. Yeah. Like we'll message each other like randomly, I don't know, every other fucking, 3-4 weeks or whatever. It's like something comes up, but so like she's a real person that actually happened, but the real story, she told me to play it up too. It's funny. She's in the acting world. And so she's like, you should play this up. And I was like, say no more. Say no more.
And I love that you mentioned that, and I'll let you get back to it. But I want to say, like, it is tough. Well, I'm gonna get serious here for a sec.
All right.
I think it's tough to date and be public about it post-divorce, because I think people have a lot of judgments about this. And when I say people, I mean those that are not in it with us, right?
There's everybody.
Yeah. There's this perspective of like, how long should you wait? Or what does it look like? Or when does this happen? Or the question I always ask before I go on a date or when I'm talking to somebody is, what do you think you did that led to your divorce? That's how people know they're like, oh shit, I'm going to date a therapist. Here we go. Like,
those are great questions though. I see. I like those questions because it's so real, right? And if the person that you ask that question to avoids that question very, very, very hardly, like they really try to avoid it, they've never thought about it then because they don't know the answer. That's how I would take it as. And
Yep.
which means they haven't done the self-reflection. They're not super self-aware to that, clearly. And there's things that might come unraveled if you go in a relationship with them that they're not even going to know exist because they haven't peeled it back. So
it's so true. This is the new wave, Mike. This is the thing. And I think you are a bit of a leader in this, whether you've embraced that or not. I think you're at the forefront. This new wave of us millennials, and I'll just say millennials in general, those of us in the, mid 30s to early 40s are saying, hey, we don't want to jump into a second marriage just to put a family back together or to have a co-parent. We want to do it right. I want to have a conscious relationship. I want someone that has such a dynamic life and that I'm challenged and intrigued at every moment. And yes, I love the idea of having another parent around, but I don't need it. My kids have a dad. He's great. But I love the idea of having somebody to, sit down on the couch with after the kids go to bed and like talk about the day. Like that's the toughest part. But I think that what ends up happening is we get to those lonely moments, right? And that's a moment I'll cry. Like I don't cry as much anymore, but like there'll be a moment after like a rough night, like I'll put the kids down, or even like a really great night where they said something funny or interesting, or like, it was just great. And then I sit down on the couch and I just want to be like, oh my goodness, did you hear what Waylon said? Or, oh, that was so hard. It's okay. You're doing great. Like that piece that we don't have can push us to open up the dating app and start swiping or text the ex or go to that person, is not your person, but you just want to share this with. And that is where we have to like take a deep breath and turn inward and start to do the work, because we're not going to solve this problem by getting out of those yucky moments by reaching for somebody that isn't at the level we actually want.
Right.
And I see that happening more often. Like that is something I want all of us divorced folks to burn. Like we do not need somebody to share this life with. We desire someone to share this life with.
Right.
And it's a hard one to let go of.
Yeah. The want versus the need. And like, I've been in those moments. Usually it's for me, for my schedule and everything, it's usually like on those Friday and Saturday nights where I don't have Ellie.
Yes.
And then I mentioned I'm taking more things off my plate metaphorically to free up, stress and brain space. Mm-hmm. And so, when I am caught up and I'm productive for the whole week and I do all the things I wanted to accomplish this week, and now it's Friday or Saturday night, and it's like, not even night, it's like 2:30 p.m. I've gotten like everything for the day done. I've got my workout in, I've done laundry, I've cleaned, and like I maybe did like another project, and it's like, what time is it? Oh, it's 2:44 p.m. and I've gotten no need to leave the house.
Yes.
Fuck.
I so feel you on that one.
Then it's like 5:31 and you're like, I don't need another snack, do I? Shit. And then
it's so true.
So like it's those days where it's like, God, now it's like 6:19. Like, can I just go to bed yet? Like,
right.
And those days where like the loneliness part will kind of set in, which sounds like you're talking about, like loneliness or the desire to want someone to share experiences with. It sets in. You're like, am I happy single? Like, but then I'm aware of seeing and feeling those feelings and being like, well, this is one day in the past, I don't know, a couple months where I've had this feeling. Is this just one of the things to deal with where, I'm happy being single. This is part of being single, right?
Yes.
Some of these days. And so I'm aware of that, which keeps me, I don't know if the word is grounded or just aware of like, these are feelings that happen. And it's like this, when you're with someone that you're happy with, there's going to be times when you have an argument or you're going to be upset. Like, and so it's kind of the inverse, right?
Yes. Good reflection.
These days are, like, you have your first fight with your girlfriend or whoever, and you're like, yep, I knew this day was coming. And it's not so much said in the inverse of like, when you're single, yep, I'm lonely today. I knew this day was coming. No one knows it's coming. Like,
yeah,
no one talks about it.
Yes, agreed.
So that's interesting. That's a little realization there. It's good.
Yeah. I call them the Sunday scaries. I did a whole podcast episode on it because for me, so Friday and Saturday nights for me, I have a group of friends called the Firsties. They're like 5 women who navigated divorce with me at the same time. Yes, we totally coined the First Wives Club, blah, 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 but we call it the Firsties. Sure. But they're wonderful women. Some of them are in serious relationships, so they're not always available. But I would say those Friday and Saturdays, I proactively schedule plans because I know how challenging that will be. But Sundays are always my catch-up days. They're the days that I try and just like hold for myself. And it's also a day, and maybe this is more of a woman's perspective. I find that a lot of men say just what you just said. It's that like Friday, Saturday night, it's that mid-afternoon where maybe you want to go out to dinner, you want to go for a bike ride together, you want to do something. And for a lot of women, we talk about this moment on Sunday afternoon. It's around 3 or 4. The light is starting to change. And it's the time we just want to like be with our family, or we want to be with somebody and appreciate the week. We want to have this like moment of gratitude and love. And maybe it's our hormones, like something just happens on Sunday at 3 or 4, or we're just like, I want love. And it's so hard. Like I find a lot of the emotions that I can push through throughout the week, or a lot of the things that I can reframe or redirect, like you just did. Like this is part of being single. This is part of this. This is part of that. On Sunday afternoon, it all bubbles to the surface and I have to face it again, or I have to work through it, or whatever it might be. And I don't want to ever be somebody that moves into a relationship and moves towards dating because of that moment.
Exactly.
I want it to be from something else. I think you named it so well. You're choosing to be single right now. Mostly, I think many people choose to be single when they really don't have the capacity to date. When their life is full of these incredible, wonderful things that deserve their energy, or they want to put their energy into. And those of us that are self-aware and know what it takes to date, you know that you've got to kind of move some energetic and emotional space for that to happen. And we're not always in the position to do that, or in a position where we want to do that per se. What kind of, at least that's my experience.
So what was your question? I want to, before you forget it, what's your question?
What put you in that place? For you?
What puts me in that place of what? Of wanting to, of the loneliness, or?
No, I think, I almost don't want to ask the question because I just want to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to
I was almost going to like reiterate one analogy that, as you were saying exactly what we were just talking about, reminds me of is like, anyone that likes to do investing, right? Whether it's stocks, real estate, or whatever. And you have, like, I talk about that because the market's down right now, big time. And is when you have, so for me, like for finance stuff, I'll just make this real short because it's about finances.
We all want to hear about finances, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like for me, investing is what I've been doing for a long time in like on all different fronts. But when I have cash, I like to get rid of it as fast as possible because cash is just sitting there. It's not earning anything. You're losing money to inflation. That's more apparent now in the news, right? Because of how high inflation is, right? So whenever I have cash, I like to put it back in some other investment, whether it's a stock, real estate, whatever it is. I want to get it put back to work. And so, if I have some cash sitting, sometimes there's a sense of urgency for me to want to get it back in something so quickly that I might, and I recognize this in myself, that I even look at investments that I wouldn't normally do for the sheer fact that I want to get that cash and put it to work and not have it sitting there, right? And so it reminded me exactly of like dating, where it's like, oh, I have that loneliness period, aka I have that cash sitting there. I need to put it to work. I need to find someone like, you'll do, right?
Yes.
And then like you get like a little bit into that investment or that relationship, which is an investment, right?
Very much
all things, time, money, energy, emotions, all that stuff. And you're like, fuck, guys, it's not a bad investment, but it's not the one I wanted.
No. And then you have to get into the place of like practicing the art of breaking up as an adult, or practicing the art of walking away, which is a lot.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's the worst. That's why people ghost. We don't.
Even if they're like a reasonable person, and they're reasonable, and you're like logical thinking and reasonable, and like can articulate everything, and they can you communicate well. It's still like, oh,
it's brutal.
Hey.
Especially when you know it. Like I remember in my 20s, like I would come in and out of relationships relatively easily because we're in our 20s. We're like, this didn't work. There's lots of fish in the sea. We're just doing life. Right. Now we're in our 30s and 40s and we're like, okay, like I invested time and energy and money into this. I don't have a lot of left. Like I'm going to do it. And then it doesn't work out. And you're like, I know how much time and energy and money they invested. And now we have to like divest each other. And it's a lot, which is why, and Mike, this was my question. I'm not actively dating per se, but I will pop in and off the apps, or if I meet somebody, I'll go on a date. Like I'm not opposed to it. I'm open to it, but usually my standards are relatively high. I want kind of a unicorn. Let's just be clear.
Sure.
And
Who doesn't?
who doesn't? But being who I am as a therapist, I have to have a certain level of man who has done his work, or it just doesn't, right? So any men that I meet that have done their work, like yourself, I have a couple of others I have in mind that I've met over the last couple of years. The resounding thing I hear is that they are not prioritizing dating, and they are prioritizing their children, they're prioritizing their job, they're prioritizing their self-work, and they're not available for dating or relationships, which I find fascinating. So the ones that are available haven't really done their work, or are still, working through their stuff, or they just don't really have some of those pieces. So what does it take for you to get to a place where you are going to make that a priority? Yeah,
that's a great question. I've pondered this a little bit too myself, where I think timing is going to be, I could see myself being with someone, even when I'm not making dating a priority, where it's just like the timing is just right? Where like, where it's all like the
stars must align.
And right, it's not like I'm looking for it, right? And because I know myself well enough to where this will happen, like, because I can connect with most people and find some kind of common ground or whatever, and I enjoy that conversation. I enjoy hanging out with them. I enjoy what they're building or what they're doing, their goals, how they're attaining them, their outlook on life, how they solve problems, their temperament, all the things, right, that I think would be a great partner for myself. And so, like, if they're that person, there's a physical attractiveness there as well. And then the timing of, like, maybe I have like one of those lonely days or something.
So women catch him on a Friday or a Saturday at 15 p.m.
I can see that happening. Like,
I know when I'm messaging you, Mike, I'm planning it.
No, I'm just, well, like, I
hear what you're saying though. Yeah.
Where it's just like, now's the time to start. I guess because you just said that, like, the guys that seem to be the catch, right? The guys that have their shit together and they're doing all the things that you're like, God, you'd be a great partner, this person over here, but they're not prioritizing dating. So it's not even on their radar, right?
Correct.
They're open to it maybe, but like they don't care enough, and because they're being intentional with what they're doing over here, kids, work, whatever. And it's that glimpse of when that person who is focused on kids, family, their work, their business, whatever it is, fitness. And then for a glimpse, they turn over. You can't see my hands on the podcast, but you can see them. Yeah. They just shift their vision just slightly over this way for a day, a week, whatever. And then someone that happens to be in that line of sight, and then they go back to their spot, but like they hook that person in there with them. And okay. Which is the timing thing I was talking about, which I don't know.
Right. I love this so much because it's so honest, but I know women listening to this are going to be like, are you fucking kidding me? Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. This is why. I think women actually pursue far more than men do. I do. I think men pursue when they catch the deer across the meadow. They're like, there she is. That deer has been circling that buck for the last fucking 50 days, waiting for him to look in her direction. There was a comedian who said this once, which I loved so much. I don't even remember who it was. Oh gosh, I can never say her name right. She does the like millennial stand-up. Yes, Eliza. Yes.
Oh, it is. Nailed it.
Eliza talks about this. She goes, guys, when you ask a guy how he met his girl, he'll always be like, I just like saw her in the bar. And then I was like, I'm going to have her. And she's like, you know what, guys, we've been clocking you for the last 2 hours. We have strategically placed our hair in the right direction, have decided to place our lipsticks on. And then we like look at you and just like glance at the right moment, right as you decide to just look up from whatever you're distracted by. And then we finally catch your gaze and we're like, oh, finally, it's been taking forever.
That's super accurate. So that's personifying what I was explaining a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like on a serious side, I think that's because women will see, because women spend more time. Well, like what you're talking about. Yep. That woman would spend more time learning about themselves, doing the self-reflection, knowing what they want. They've dated with intention. So they're speaking to a guy, they're hanging out with a guy, they're doing all the things with dating with a guy while keeping not tabs, but like keeping note of everything that they've learned from this person, whether they break up or stay together, what they like, dislike, how it affected them. They've learned something new about themselves. So like they're just doing it intentionally. So they're approaching it not like a business, but they're approaching it with the purpose of making it work. And so when they see a guy, or when they know a guy or meet a guy that they are like, holy shit, he's checking all these boxes off that I've already looked at, dived into years ago with this guy and that guy and whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, this person is ideal for me.
Yes.
I will pursue him because I know that I'll be happy as long as I can make him happy, as far, if I match the things that he's looking for.
Yeah.
But that fucking guy doesn't know what he's looking for.
He doesn't. He's distracted until it's 4 p.m. on a Friday night and he feels lonely. It's also
so good.
I know, right? I also think women, I think we feel the edge or the loss of relationship a little bit more than you guys do. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and be very gendered. So please take this with a grain of salt.
You said feel the loss, you said? The
loss, like the lack of the longing for a relationship. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit evolutionary. So I'm going a little on a limb here, but I think women, since the dawn of history, has literally we have been groomed year after year after year after year, generation after generation, to be in community, to have support, to have partnership. Long ago, that wasn't a husband, right? That was actually like the sisters and the aunts and the grandmas and like the family you had around you. Mm-hmm. Love wasn't actually like the highest on our priority list. It was very much about something else. But as the years have gone on, we have kind of shifted that into partnership. And I think we feel that, whereas men throughout generations and generations and generations, your brain, the community, the culture have prepared you to be more independent, have prepared you to do some things alone. And I'm not saying men don't get lonely. That's not what I'm saying. But sure. I don't see the same desire from healthy men that I see from healthy women. Obviously, everybody on the unhealthy scale desires partnership for sometimes the wrong reasons, like we said, to fill the void or sex or whatever it happens to be. But everybody who is in this healthy space, we desire this. But I find that there's a lot more women in this space who are saying, I want this. And the men that are in this space are like, when everything feels right. And I also think, Mike, and tell me what your thoughts are on this. I think it's because there are more women who fit that category that you're describing than there are men.
Yes. More women are ready and wanting that long-term relationship, that commitment, than men. You said you hit on a lot of great points there. I mean, I think guys are just we really are so simple in that, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the cliches, they're cliches for a reason, right? They're stereotypes for a reason for this scenario. And, when we've been single, this is for me, speaking from my experience, when I've been single and I've been happy and I can, do all the independent things to just take care, like be an adult basically, which is not like that.
When I'm adulting. It's
not that like, oh my God, congratulations. Like everyone should be able to adult, right? That's what society is, but that's a whole different topic. Is, I get all the joys that I need by myself for the most part. And so I don't know I don't know exactly how to say it, but there's not like a huge desire for, like, especially me, I think as a single dad, a lot of women I hear through their experiences, they say they yearn to have a family. They have that urge to nest and to be a mother. And I understand that. Right. And so I remember someone told me that, dads don't really get it until they meet their kid. And I'm like, I didn't understand that when they say, when you meet your child. I was like, what do you mean? And then the moment Ellie came out of her mom, I was like, oh my God, I get it. I've never loved something so much in my life.
Yes. Yeah.
Come here, it was like the best. It was the best. Right. And ever since it's been the same, where it's like I need to take care of you. And it looks different at different ages, but I need to take care of you. You need me. You're so vulnerable. And that sense of duty to take care of her comes on pretty quick, it comes on instantly. But as far as guys just really know oh yeah, I guess I'll date now. I mean, I don't know how to do that.
It's because you can. So Mike, when you're ready, you probably would look up and there'd be 50 women who've been clocking you. And you're like, oh, I'll pick that. Right. Versus a woman, she looks up because she's ready. And she's like, oh, well, there's no one. So I guess I'll have to journey through this forest and over the mountain and through the cave. And there's the unicorn,
So they're going to put the time into themselves. Right. So they know. So the woman that you just described looks up, sees no one from her perspective, which there's guys that are there, but they're not guys that are going to work for her. So I agree with you there that she looks up and there's nothing there. Guys, right? So guys look up, let's just say, And, for the example you gave, I look up and there's 50 women there, and since let's say the guy hasn't put in time to learn themselves and understand, like, I see 50 women, like, oh my God, 50 women. But like, me personally, I put in some time, enough time in myself to know that when I talk to 50 women or see these 50 women, like, there's not 50 there.
Correct.
Let's say it cuts in half real quick, 25. And then you take one step of, I forget the word you call it, but like for me, like investigating or diving deeper, or like, who is this person? And then you get like one step into their life or two steps in, like not very deep into their life. You're like, oh, let's cut another third out right there, which is the same thing as what women do when they look up and they see no men, because they know that those guys that they see are incompatible for themselves for these, reasons X, Y, and Z. And for guys, it might take a step or two or three to realize, because they haven't had time to intentionally date or learn about themselves. They're learning about themselves as they're dating someone new. I've heard of that a lot.
Yep.
I've been that guy where it's like, yeah, I think I want you. I like you. Like for these 4 reasons, I like you. And then you go like one step in, you're like, oh, for these 7 reasons, I think we wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And then like, now I have 11 reasons for the next person. And I go to the next person. Hey, for these 11 reasons, I like you. And then you go like 4 steps deep. You're like, oh shit, for these 18 reasons, I don't like you.
Yep.
I thought you said you loved me, like, or whatever this are. You said like, it would be great. I'm like, well, I thought we would until I learned this about myself. Ah, shit.
Yes. Yes.
But that's like, yeah.
That self-awareness is huge. And I think that's the unicorn. When I say like, I want a unicorn, and I get it. That statement is kind of frustrating to people too. But I think it's this idea that those of us on the second round, those of us that have done the relationship, then done the work, then gotten to a place where they are ready, or they're in a position where they're stepping into that desire. They want someone who is good at boundaries, right? I'm going to say that's like number 1. Like they know that if this person is spending time with them, it's because they want to, not because like they have to, or because they're desperate or in a bad position. And 2, they have a general idea of what they want, and you happen to fit that mold to a degree. And number 3, they desire to go deeper to determine whether or not this relationship can be a conscious relationship or not. And I think that in 2 people can be really cool, because both people go in saying, hey, these first 11 reasons are great. Let's explore the next level and see if it's right. In fact, they don't even get to that place of, I want to commit my life to you, I want to be with you, until that depth has happened, because they know the cost, because they know how precious their time is, how precious their children's time are, how precious each of these things are. So they're so willing to have this exploration in the dating world. And that's where I say these men who, like yourself, who are like, I don't have time for dating right now. I think that's incredibly important, because when you do, and I imagine you'll have to tell me later when this happens for you, when you do, I think something will flip on inside of you where you're going to crave the depth with whatever woman has caught your eye that is going to need some space that you have to make in your life for. Oh, yeah. And that's why, because you kind of intuitively know that you can't just frivolously date, because you're going to want to spend the time and the energy to get to know them on a deeper level.
Yeah. The shallow date, like I don't know what the word is, but like the single life of just like frivolously dating, right? Where it's just like, let's go have fun. Let's just date. Okay, this is cool. That's being single. Is, however you want to define it. That's fun. You got your single out of you, right? Like, okay, cool, we had fun. That's great. But at some point it's like, for me, because I made some videos on this like a while back, where it's like, if someone's offering you like basically just being physical with you is all they're offering, right? Guy or girl. Like, that's cool. That's fun. You could be great at sex and all these things. And like, oh, that's amazing. Then for me, it's like, okay, that's cool. That was nice. That was fun. What else do you bring to the table? Is that it?
Yeah.
That's it. Like, that's great. You got nothing else to offer, right? Like,
yeah.
And what they have to offer, it looks different to each person depending on what you like and what's compatible for you, right? For me, someone who's got goals, are taking actionable steps towards those goals, they're big goals, and they're semi-aligned with mine, or like at least in parallel or similar, because I want to help her with her goals and her business things, and vice versa. Seeing business problems through a different lens is always super helpful. And like, it's because I like business. I like doing my own investing in business stuff because, people ask, hey, what are your hobbies? What do you do when you have free time? Like, I like to work on my business. You don't like to play backgammon? I'm like, no, I don't fucking care. You don't have a Netflix series you're watching? Like, not really. No, I'm on the internet, like doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy that. Right. So for me, some people will say like, you work too much. And I'm like, well, this is like my hobby is my business. My business is my hobby.
Yes. I feel that.
I have fun doing that, right? Like for real estate, I love, like yesterday I went driving out looking at properties that were going up for auction this week, tomorrow. And because I have some cash sitting, right? And so it's like, I want to get it to work. And so I went and looked at 4 different properties, and it's like, that's what I want to do on my free time is I'll spend 2 hours, go drive, grab a coffee, go look at these houses, go knock on some neighbors' doors. Hey, do you know anything about this property over here? I can't, someone in there, they can't see inside, well, whatever. It's like, do all your due diligence. And I like that shit. Like, so for me, compatibility is looking at somebody and they have something that's, they don't have to be real estate investors. Like I wouldn't care about that, but I know that they would inquire about it and be curious, right? I know that's compatible with me, like something I'm super into. If they're not even curious about it, why aren't they curious? I don't know. Why aren't they curious? Because whatever she's doing, if it's a business on, I don't know, whatever the business is, I'd be like, cool. How does that part work?
Yes.
Could you sell more here? What's your marketing plan look like? Right. Like, or what does your back end on your website look like? Like, how do you do yours? Let me look at mine. And I don't know. That's for me. That's that.
You named something really cool, and we're running out of time, but I want to say this before we end, because again, I told you this earlier, Mike, we could probably talk for hours.
For sure.
I think that what you're naming, and this is so important. So we have the like passing of the baton thing I mentioned earlier, right? So when we're burning down this old relationship paradigm and we're creating a new one, we want people who have done their work. We don't want to move from a place of scarcity. We want someone we can pass the baton with. Then this next piece you just brought in, which I love, is you want someone who's going to invest in the things you love, period. Yeah. Their time, their energy, their interest. I find that a lot of couples who get divorced have very dissimilar interests that they don't pay attention to. They end up actually going in completely different directions, don't know a lot about each other's life or what they do. And it eventually ends in a lot of like emotional affairs or situations where they're filling that space with someone else. Because the number one reason for me to have a partner in my life is I want someone who's going to witness my life alongside me. I want someone who's going to challenge me, witness me, reflect with me. So when we're like 85, 90 on that porch, we can be like, do you remember that moment that you invested in this? That was stupid, right? Yeah. Whatever it is, like I want those moments because that's what creates a lifetime of companionship and partnership in a way that you can't create with anybody else. And that's the desire, I think, many of us are having and are waking up to, is we want someone who gets us, who understands us on a level that no one else does. And to do that, you have to invest in your partner's interests. And so this last piece coming together of, what does this conscious relationship look like? I think is this component. And who knows, maybe we keep having this conversation and it becomes, this developing of what does a conscious relationship look like? What does it actually mean to be in a healthy relationship in the 21st century? And what are we actually asking from our partners? Because I'm not sure anybody is really asking that question, or maybe some people are, but not enough people are. And this is a very important conversation to have so that when we navigate this second or third chance after divorce, we're looking for the right things. And maybe we're setting up the world in a better place because we're having healthier relationships with one another, and thereby creating healthier situations for our children and future generations to have great role models of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I recognize that too. Couples that they have such dissimilar interests. And it's like, you never, you see the movies all the time where it's like, you never come to the rodeo with me, or you never go dancing with me, or like whatever the thing is. You never go golfing with me. And it's like, well, I fucking hate golf. Like, I like golf. Like, I don't want to go to the rodeo. But show interest in what I like. I'm like, which there will be, you're not going to have everything that you love, they're going to love too. Like, this is likely not going to happen. If it were to happen, that's awesome, because then you guys could be like best friends about the things you love. You both love golf. You both love, for me, it's business, right? Investing, growing something, doing things on your own terms, like, finding new opportunities, hitting them full speed ahead until you kind of exhausted them and determine whether you want to grow them bigger or not. I enjoy those things. And so someone that enjoys, like for me, people that, that are content with their, like there's, being content with your life is fine. I just like to learn, grow continually. So, which means to me, you're not, I'm never content, right? Yeah. Not in a way that's like, I feel stressed about, I gotta move forward. I I move forward with willingly, right? I want to move forward. I want to have that a little bit of pressure behind me that I give myself to like, now let's do something new. I want to find something different and like build something bigger. And so like for me, someone who's just settled, it's like, for me, it's just not exciting. It's like forever. Like we're in our 30s, like for 50 more years, just this, like, well, that's fucking boring. Like it might be like, for me it is, right? And I might be the minority, which is fine, but I like what I like. Like,
but it's so good to say that. Like I'm the same way. I'm an entrepreneur and a business owner. Like I have to have somebody who's going to invest in their growth and my growth. It will literally drive me insane, or I'll drive them insane because I'm going to be pushing them. Right. And I think but nobody's asking these questions on dates, right? Like, I mean, I am because I'm me. Yeah. But like, nobody's asking these questions of like, what does growth mean to you? Or what, how are you going to be different in 20, 30 years? Or do you imagine yourself like reaching a place of growth and then being satisfied? Or are you always going to be invested in your growth? And these are important questions we have to ask. And I will say this, Mike, for those people in my world, whether it be my friends or my clients or the people that I've met that couple up rather quickly post-divorce or couple up quickly in their 20s, for many of them, they really do very much prioritize safety, stability, and that, what am I going to say? Like
other characteristics and behaviors that come with that type of decision probably align with each other. So
there you go.
If a guy and a girl both believe I got to get married by 25, and they both believe that, there's things that happen in their lives that make them both believe the same thing. And so if those people meet each other, they're good enough for each other, and they both have those same urges and desires, a lot of other things might align with them. So it ended up naturally might working out. And
Yes. But those of us who are, I'm going to call myself a unicorn. I'm just going to say it. We need like a female version of that. I don't know what.
Own that shit, girl.
Yes. I already know it. But I think that we take longer, people ask all the time, what's your criteria? What's your list for your potential future mate? I'm like, well, I don't have like a running list, but I have an idea of what he might be like. And I'll describe it. And I have friends who laugh at me and be like, oh, okay. So like 007 mixed with like Mountain Man. I'm like, oh,
they ask.
You ask.
That's what that's the North Star, right? That's what I'm aiming for these reasons.
But I think that's the piece, is somebody could come out of left field and surprise me and have all sorts of different things. But if I don't ask myself the question of what do I want? What do I desire? What am I looking for? And actually answer that question and continue to ask myself that question and grow and change, I'm going to end up discovering that, halfway into a second marriage. So there is a lot. And I really, really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you talking about this with me.
Yeah, I love it. It's stuff.
Yes, I'll probably try and drag you onto this podcast again to be like part two.
Part two.
But thank you so much. And is there any particular way you want people to find you? Do you prefer Instagram or TikTok? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, whatever their main platform is, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, TikTok is really, I put videos out on there. You can't message me on there. It's not a great messaging platform. I see most DMs that come in. I'll click and read nearly all of them, or, at least browse them real fast. But like,
it's a big commitment there.
Like I don't respond to all of them. I just don't, right? I gotta be mindful of my own time. But yeah, it doesn't matter either way. Instagram seems more intimate because you have the stories you can put in there. I have pictures and posts I'll put up on stories. Get real like live and very real. It's like it's in real life, in real time. So
and I'll share. I'll have an infographic with your information and stuff. Doesn't matter to me whether you share it on your stuff or not. I'm okay with either. But for those of you that follow me, if you do, I will tag him in my post at least so he can see it. So if you want to comment or if some question comes up, let me know. I'm always happy to pass them on. What I love is these conversations usually get a bunch of questions. And then sometimes I go back to person I interviewed and say, look at these questions, like, let's go on and answer some of them. And I am really leaning hard into the direction of working with people navigating divorce in many of the projects that I do. So I'm sure I'll have more conversations with you, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. I like it. Opening up my brain a little bit.
That is what I do. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you again for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate every single second that you chose to set aside for you and the impact that you're going to have on the world today. To be inspired, to be seen, and to hold space starts with the very actions we take with ourselves. Look at the show notes for more information. Like and subscribe and share with friends if you feel inspired to. And as always, let the rest burn.